Welcome to the Gray Report. I'm Griffin Haddad, this week's host and investor relations professional at Gray Capital. In this week's episode, we're going to be joined by Senior Vice President of Gray Residential, Katrina Greene, as well as Vice President of Gray Residential, Joe Powell. And to my right, we'll have Blake Pieroni, Head of Investor Relations at Gray Capital. This week, we're talking about adaptation and changes in the property management model across the decades. Both Joe and Katrina have 20 to 30 years of experience in the industry, and Blake and I are tasked with asking them the important questions relative to change over the years. At the end of the episode, we'll both get the chance to ask Katrina and Joe a rapid-fire series of questions. Stick around to the end, and thanks for joining us. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Gray Report. Thank you for tuning in. As previously mentioned, Spencer Gray out of office. So we have the decision makers, the string pullers, the people in the arena at Gray Residential, our property management company. Senior Vice President Katrina Greene, as well as Vice President Joe Powell. And I've brought on Head of Investor Relations Blake Pieroni to help me ask the hot questions, the important questions, and to assist us in navigating this conversation, which we're going to dive into the building, adapting, and leading in property management with these two individuals. Thank you for having us. And Blake, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
First podcast with four in this room.
Yeah, first for me. It's an all skate.
It's an all.
Do you guys know what that means?
Nope. I know what an all skate
Okay.
is. I know what an all skate is.
Okay.
Not very good at the roller skating. However,
Okay.
I was there for that.
Okay.
Is that when the older folks come to like skate at the
No.
same time as
Well-
everybody else?
It's when everyone gets to skate all the same
At all the same time.
Yeah, like no theme or whatever. But
I-
yeah, the old folks. Thanks, Blake.
Right. The people that can actually skate when the disco ball lights are moving, because there's people that can't.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I've never been skating.
They shut those off, and then you can come on out in an all
Yeah.
skate.
I've been ice skating twice, and it was pretty bad, but never roller skating.
Well, let's get into it. Speaking of all skate, the Gray Residential Property Management Company hosted its own all skate today in the office. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We had site managers from across our portfolio come to Indianapolis to speak here at the Gray Capital headquarters. Give us a rundown of what the purpose of that meeting was, who all was involved, and what the overall objective was.
Yeah, so the talent engagement coordinator, Nikki, and the two regionals really are in charge of the content for it. But I led and opened the meeting just to talk to them about what 2026 and beyond was going to look like, mostly in the, I suppose, like scope of staffing structure, and really just more to outline the fact that, we've got commitments and then we have to budget for the resources to meet those commitments. And what does that really look like? So kind of trying to just distill it down to some very basic things. This is what we have to do. We have to commitments to the residents, to the employees, and to our owners. And then what are the resources needed to line up with that? So that was really my contribution today. And then I left and did a few other things. But the theme I know of the meeting was accountability. And so they, had slides and probably had some games and prizes, it sounded like. And they just like to come together and, sounding board. The property management just is naturally all these satellite locations. And so that's the unit. And we like to make sure that they feel really tied and dedicated, to us as well. But that's not easy to do until you are in the room together, just working some things out, brainstorming. It's also like a coping day. It's a little bit,
Share
Yeah.
stories at different sites. Of things that they're working on.
And it's not like a misery loves company, but sometimes it is just like you want to talk to someone that understands what you're going through or how it really went without having to give so much background. Like you can just be like, no, this resident, or whatever.
So often you're sitting here thinking, why am I dealing with this? I shouldn't have to deal with this. This is the craziest resident ever. And then you come in and you sit down and, your fellow manager's like, I had to deal with two of those yesterday.
Yeah.
Someone
They're
ran
like,
into
hold
the,
my beer.
ran into the building.
Somebody
yesterday.
ran into the building
Yeah.
and I got cussed out by a resident. So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then they feel better about the situation. I mean, no one says, okay, I got cussed out, I really enjoyed that. But once you realize that you're not the only one, you don't have a bullseye on you, that we're all in the same group.
It's a little cathartic to talk to other people.
Oh,
It
for
is,
sure.
for
Yeah,
sure.
they love it. They love it.
Reassuring.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask, first of all, Joe to introduce himself, maybe describe his introduction to property management in general, wear and tear and the care of real estate assets in general. I'll allow Joe to do that. And then Katrina, you're a little bit of a mainstay on the Gray Report podcast.
Yeah, I sure am. This is my third time.
If you listened last week, you've seen Katrina, you've heard from Katrina. But Joe, I think this is your first time on the Gray Report. Is that correct?
It's my first time on the Gray Report, and I was on Katrina's podcast.
Yeah.
I think I was guest number 4.
Oh, wow.
I was. So
Give us like a 30-second elevator pitch on Joe Powell, but really, I'd like to just hear the origin of Joe Powell into property management, and then kind of where you sit today in your leadership role here at Gray Residential.
yeah, it's hard to condense almost 30 years into 30 seconds, but I'll do my best. Probably a teenager, 18, 19 years old, making not all the greatest decisions. I had a MIC job, and I knew that wasn't going to last long. A friend of mine said, hey, I know where we can go and mow some grass, making $7.75 an hour now. In my day, that's good money. So it tells you how old I am. And so with that, I went to a warehouse and applied for a job and ended up on the grass crew with Indianapolis Public Housing. And it was a big deal for me. It was my first time as having a grown man job, and I was making money working full time. And then I realized at the end of the year, the grass is going to stop growing and they're going to want to lay me off, and I can't do that. And so I asked my supervisor, I said, hey, I want a toolbox, and I want to go do what those guys out there on the properties are doing. And he said, well, what are they doing? I said, I don't know, but none of them are talking about layoffs. And so.
And you're 18, 19 at this time?
I was 18.
That's some good foresight and gumption, I feel like, at that age.
To ask Jeff Thompson, give me a job with doing what they do without having the training and knowledge to back up, that was a big leap. But so next, fast forward 30 years and I'm still in multifamily, no longer mowing grass, but sometimes shoveling snow with the guys. But it was a long journey. It took a lot of learning, a lot of patience, a lot of training, and just understanding that where I was yesterday and today is not good enough. So tomorrow's got to be better. And I climbed the ladder, and here I am.
Right. We will. We're going to get into some conversations later with Joe and Katrina, diving into those 30 years of experience, asking you to take a look in the rearview mirror, assess the way things were, the way things are, maybe the way that they're headed. So I appreciate that introduction, Joe. And
Thank you.
Sorry to ask you to summarize a year in 1 second.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
30. Yeah, right.
30.
Yeah.
30 years, 30 seconds.
30 and 30.
It did it.
And then Katrina, just if anybody's jumping into Gray Report as a
Yeah.
first-time listener today, or maybe has not listened to your podcast, The Complex, please, if you would do the same as Joe, just kind of summarize your introduction to property management and the role that you currently have here at Gray Residential would be awesome.
Yeah, not incredibly dissimilar, but I was living at an apartment community, my first apartment, and they needed someone to fill in for leasing while someone had a baby. And I had been up there faxing my resume and using the tanning bed in the clubhouse. So they knew me, and I like to believe that I'm personable and I'm very outgoing. And so I think that they recognize, like, hey, she'd probably do a really good job while Andrea is off. And so I started that. And then, much like everything happens in multifamily, Andrea came back for a day and said, nope, not going to do this anymore. And then the manager was terminated, probably for great reasons. And then, I stayed in it. And so done that for 24 years. And then I just have like this special section of my life where I worked for a vendor. So I have some perspective from the other quote unquote the other side. We do call it like it's like adversarial, and I think in those moments, it was for a marketing company, so I got backside marketing information and training and got to see how a lot of different management companies worked. and then came back to operations, which is somewhat rare. People are like, oh, you're the one that went back to operations after the vendor side, which,
There's
crazy.
there's
Yeah, I'm crazy.
Yeah. What do they call Harry Potter, the boy who lived? And the girl who went to the other side.
Yeah.
Never came back.
I did.
Well, awesome. And then Blake, just a quick introduction of yourself, the maybe intro into your role here at Great Capital on the investor relations side would just be great for anybody that's listening for the first time.
Yeah. So I have a more extensive background in athletics, specifically in swimming. I swam through high school and college at IU, swam professionally for a number of years, retired in 2021, or thought I did. Got connected to Spencer through a family friend and started at Great Capital as an intern in January of 22, so almost 4 years now. And now we work together on the investor relations, raising equity for projects, talking to investors, reporting, distributions, and things like that. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years already.
Crazy. Truly crazy.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Well, in our daily operations at Great Capital, Blake and I are oftentimes asking Katrina and Joe hard questions about our existing portfolio, its performance, what's going on site, whether it's leasing, CapEx, you name it. We go to these two for the hard questions, questions that may be a nuisance, but these two always have the answers. So today, I'm actually looking forward to just discussing with you guys and asking you questions that maybe provides me a little bit more insight into your background, how you're making decisions, and then in which direction you see our company, Gray Residential, as well as the property management industry heading. So let's go ahead, let's jump in. There's a few things that I was hoping to talk about today. It's simply about change and how change is a constant in our world. I was driving home from work yesterday thinking about hosting this podcast. What are we going to talk about? How should we bring it up? In Indiana, it's fall. The leaves are changing. I noticed this on my way home. It's the first time all season. Beautiful. Change is forever constant in our lives, whether it's personal, professional, at home, at work, doesn't matter. I believe that's true across property management. And to be stagnant or to maintain a position in property management seems detrimental. So when I wanted to talk about changes today, I wanted to talk about the short-term trendy changes and how they're being applied, and their short-term trendy changes that are a little bit sticky that lead to adaptation and the way that you two are behaving, you two are acting, and the decisions that you're making. So with that being said, I'm identifying areas of change that are consistent from month to month, week to week in property management, move-outs, move-ins, unit turns, staffing turnovers, value-add projects, acquisitions, dispositions, rental rates, occupancy rates, vacancy rates. Everything is always changing. So as you guys have to do with this ever day-by-day change in the industry of property management, first and foremost, what have you seen over the 3 decades of your involvement in property management that continues to evolve, but specifically what has stood out the most to you in the evolution of property management?
Like that has changed the absolute most?
The absolute most.
Do you want to take that one?
I mean, for us, it's, just the use of technology every day. In the back of the house in maintenance, we started out hand tools and tools that plugged in the wall and 3 copy work orders, white, pink, yellow, carbon copy work orders. It was as basic as you get, all the way to now. I've got tools and equipment for HVAC that link up to my phone and can tell me what Miss Anetta's air conditioner is doing right now if I open it up and just go put my equipment on it. There's so, and those things make our jobs easier. It makes us more efficient. But sometimes for some of us, we're not so easily adaptable to change and technology. Some of us get stuck in our ways, and you hear terms like, I'm from the old school, and it's hard to, we get it, and we tell our people all the time, like, there's never going to be a situation where we intentionally waste your time. So if this new technology is slow to boot, once you adopt it and adapt to it, it will make you faster. And so technology,
it'll make them faster. It'll make us know that they can go faster.
It will give us the confidence that they could move faster. How's that? It's a better answer?
Yeah,
definitely so. But yeah, we deal with the same problems as we used to, but just having technology that helps us figure out that issue faster these days. It's a big change now that I can
I think
see.
the data is a blessing and a curse because, when I started, and probably when you did too, it was like you had a weekly report. You pulled an availability, you put it in your binder. As the week went on, when you leased an apartment, you wrote your name, you wrote the last name of the person that, was moving in, and then you highlighted it so nobody leased that apartment. And then, Monday morning, Gina put together the Monday report packet that might have included, that information and a few other things. And so it was like, nobody on Wednesday was looking at what happened on Tuesday.
Right.
Nobody looked at the tour that happened on Tuesday and said, why didn't they lease, or whatever. You had this like window of time to continue to nurture the lead, do the follow-up, get them assigned. Back then they had to go get a check or a money order, and, they sat and filled out the application. And so I think sometimes like speed of data is great. And sometimes it causes this like level of impatience for action or level of impatience for result. Whereas, we used to have some, maybe more steady, but a little bit of a gap in time when we were actually like being measured or measuring. And now we can just measure all of it all the time. And, you can sometimes get, just like deeply into something that, might be detracting from, making moves,
Right.
I don't know. So
in this vein, so both of you would say technology is probably one of the biggest things that's changed in property management over the past few years, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, technology is supposed to be there to make our lives easier usually, but it sounds like the implementation or adoption of that technology across the sites is somewhat challenging sometimes, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Always.
So, yeah, for different reasons. Like,
so I was wondering if like the implementation of technology, like from when you guys started, what was the most challenging aspect of the job then? And like today, what's the most challenging aspect of the job? Is it the same? Has it changed because of technology? I mean, obviously before you didn't have to worry about, are people going to adopt this software that we just used? And
right.
I never felt like it was a challenging role when
No.
I was leasing. And, but also just from a competitive landscape, it wasn't like it was, you had a website, obviously, and you had advertisements. You were in the For Rent magazine. Used to have magazines.
So just the competition today is totally different.
Well, yeah, because it's so competitive out there. You're worried so much about your branding and having the right content, trying to grab the attention. Obviously,
Right.
like a Google search engine results page is different today than it was in. I started in 2001, and I remember when we got QR codes for the first time in For Rent magazine, and we were teaching clients how to use it and helping them understand the tracking capability. So, tracking capabilities have come so far, but they take it to a place where operators are trying to throw, a single dart at the bullseye every time.
Right.
Whereas, maybe back then, you were just like, look, I'm just going to close my eyes, throw as many darts as I can at the dartboard. Something's going to stick. We're going to get some leases and it's going to be fine.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question there, but
Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you go.
I was going to say, I think another way that it seems like technology may have changed or potentially was going to change for the better, but may not have communication. 30 years ago, there were no cell phones. We had a walkie-talkie.
You said office to mic. Office to mic.
Yeah. and that
They couldn't hide from you.
And that was your communication.
Right.
And so it's like with the evolution, as we adopt these cell phones every day, and then from just telephone in your pocket now to texting platforms and social media, like I can communicate with Katrina out on site all day long and not see her.
Right.
And that that influx of communication took the physical part of no one's coming to the office and seeing how we're doing,
Right.
checking in. I didn't see you at lunch. I don't know where you are during the day. It appears you're working because our chat log is full of information, but I don't see you anymore. And I think that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Because
For sure.
it's easy for morale to go from here to here. Someone feels certain kind of way and we're not coming together as a unit and hashing these things out. They fester and they become worse. And So I think it was supposed to be a great thing, and maybe didn't
Right.
end up being as great as we thought
Right.
to be able to be as accessible.
Or it's just imbalanced.
I think it's imbalanced.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imbalance is a great way to put that.
That makes sense. So when you guys first started, what would you say, if you had to say one thing, hardest part of the job or the role was back then? It sounded like it was a lot easier back then without a lot of this technology. It sounded a little bit simpler.
I have all positive memories of my start, and I think that I don't think that I'm special in that. Like if you talk to people our age, you know,
I was allowed to mess up. A lot of things were trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't make
I had great
multi-thousands
teachers.
of dollars mistakes over and over, but
Yeah.
you learned as you went, and you were congratulated as you learned more, and it showed. In the city, in Indianapolis public housing, we were union, so as you progressed in pay as well, so that was a motivator. I think that's missing today, but it's difficult because in this market, everyone comes in at different levels of experience and different levels of money, so that tier system may not be as easy to adopt. But yeah, I mean, we communicated, like, you brought something back to the shop, and if you didn't know how to fix it, someone in that shop did.
Right.
And then you knew.
Right.
And you felt good about that, built the confidence to go learn something else. I don't have bad memories.
Yeah. I mean, the hardest thing might have been like when a new competitor would come in, but that wasn't so frequent. You know what I mean? Like it was like a big deal. It was like, oh my gosh, Washington Village is building, and you'd go.
Now we got to go put cookies. We got to take cookies to that neighborhood.
Right, right. You take some candy to Jiffy Lube.
From listening to you guys today, it seems like you need to be much more proficient in just a lot more areas. Whether it's using technology, sales, PPC, or Google Ads, or like anything, it just seems like you have to have your fingers in way more areas, and you have to be much better in all of those areas than like when you started.
For us,
Yeah.
time management is a big one because, X amount of years ago, before revenue management systems, there was a little bit of leniency on, if that unit right there is not necessarily rented, can we move some dates around so that we're not backs against the wall? But when you're in when you're in a fast-paced property that's on, a revenue management platform, that leasing team's job is get that off the shelf, efficiency. And our job is to make sure it's ready at all times. And so we'll have situations where we're scrambling to get this unit over here ready because it's been leased for the last 3 weeks, and then boom, that unit falls through. But this unit now needs to be done in the second, and we can't draw back and say, look, you got to take a break. We have to stay on it. So time management is probably one of the things that, if we're not adapting to or figuring out how to do better, we're losing.
Okay.
We're losing.
Awesome.
Yeah, everyone does have to be very technically, a lot of technical aptitude, but I don't even think that's like the hard part.
No.
I think the hardest thing out there is like intrinsic motivation. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's, failure on our part to help everyone understand like how their contributions, impact the community, positively. Mm-hmm. I think some of it is just like, society's just so sad.
Culture a little
down.
Yeah.
And, just lots and lots of things working against us, because I don't actually think that the job is that complicated. Before we did our leases, for a while you typed into like a Word document, which is terrifying because I could have just typed anything I wanted into a lease agreement. I didn't, but I could have, and then you went to a mail merge.
Yeah.
And then eventually NAA came out, with their lease agreement that, and then now you're just mapping data fields, and then now you're just clicking right through it, just, double checking and making sure that it's all, it's all correct. And there's nothing ultimately difficult about that. And, probably the hardest thing is how many tasks can, at this point are so efficiently done that they don't have to be done on site at all. And then you're just trying to grapple with what that looks like. And now we're trying to make decisions about what has to get done on site, what's incredibly important for connectivity. It's actually not a difficult job, and I'm not diminishing the work that people do. I'm just saying, like, did technology take some of the fun or some of the joy out of it? Like, is the productivity measures, losing the fact that, like, it's possible Debbie Brown does want to come up and talk to me for 45 minutes. And that's an important part of her day.
Right.
And maybe it was an important part of mine. A true salesperson, a true, like, great leasing person is very social.
Oh, yeah.
Very social.
Mm-hmm.
And so, maybe the challenge actually is, finding the balance between, like, sucking the joy out of the job with the technological pieces and still allowing for the connectivity to occur.
That's interesting. Cool.
Just in the conversation we've had, we've talked about technology, its ability to improve communications, data visibility, to then guide your decision making. You guys are both involved in our property management company, but the more that you talk about it in our interactions here in the office, it's very apparent that property management really is just people management or human management. So you guys are at the helm of, let's just call it a 70-person plus team at this point in time at Gray Residential. How have you recognized, or how have you levered the opportunity to install technology across your Gray Residential platform to make those 70 employees at different sites have that team orientation and work towards the common goal of Gray Residential and Gray Capital? Because it does inherently seem like a large challenge to take a site team in Bloomington, Indiana, and have them share a common goal with a site team that might be in Lansing, Michigan, or Granger, Indiana. Can you guys talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I think in my department, every Monday, all of my supervisors are on a call with me and my two portfolio support specialists, and we discuss the common goal overall, and then individual goals on each team, and how we're going to get to that, and what kind of help myself and the support team can be in order to help reach the individual site goals as well as Gray Residential's goals. Now, with technology and communication, Microsoft Teams, we have channels where this is all maintenance. So if I need all of maintenance to know something, we go there. Then there's a separate channel that's supervisors only, and they get to take what I say and go talk amongst themselves. Joe was right about this, but I think he's wrong about that. I'm sure that grumble is in there, and I refuse to go check it out because, I think they should be able to say what they need to say, because at the end of the day, the goal is the goal and you have to reach it. But just supporting them, in giving them, similar to the meeting we had earlier, my department, they all like to talk to each other as well. They like to communicate, to come together, and they like to know that they're not the only person dealing with these issues. And Microsoft Teams allows us to create these channels for everyone, and then these private channels for communication for when it gets down to brass tacks. We're in there figuring it out and
I think
executing.
Definitely like to talk in a place that doesn't include any of us.
100% for sure.
In a good way.
You guys
I think that's a good thing.
You guys are here at corporate headquarters in Indianapolis, where we have sites across the Midwest. And so just your inability to be in 4 or 5 different places at one time with the technologies, FaceTime, Microsoft Teams, whatever it might be, it gives you an opportunity to be here, but also have a presence and a voice on site. So it's very awesome to hear. I think we should keep the conversation moving in the right direction. I mentioned earlier that changes can be quite temporary, they can be quite trendy, short-lived and repetitive. Speaking in the world of technologies, and you've also mentioned previously maybe a younger workforce that lacks the intrinsic motivation. I want to talk specifically about how across both of your careers you've had to make long-term changes or adaptations to manage the younger workforce that maybe does lack those internal intrinsic motivations. What types of changes in your overall leadership behavior have you seen that have worked, or how have you had to pivot from a technique that maybe hasn't worked in order to get those team members to really buy in?
Yet?
Has anything worked a little bit? You've seen progress on?
Yeah, no, I don't, and I'm not picking on Gen Z. And of all the people, or at least of all the people in my circle, I guess, I think that I have worked really hard to try to understand them, because it's not us versus them at all. But what I think will work And it's for everybody. It's for everybody. Age aside, is making sure that we're taking a holistic approach to supporting the employee's personal life. And truly, from just books and research, if I was isolating Gen Z, I'm only doing this under the guise of like actual studies. They're counting on the workplace for the majority of their connectivity. I didn't go to work to make friends. I was friendly. I've always been friendly. That's actually your phrase, friendly but not friends. But it works for him, doesn't it? But what I do think is happening is that we have to feed the soul, feed the growth, feed the life plan, feed the budgeting plan, feed the wellness plan. Like, as an employer, I think it was trendy, years ago, where it was like, we're going to have a, steps challenge, and we're all going to get everybody Fitbits. And I'm not mocking that, except to the extent that like it maybe happened and then it stopped there. But the real reality is much deeper than the steps challenge. And so, if we're going to continue to nurture the workforce, no matter what age they are, we have to start talking about, smart spending. Like Joe will say, like, well, this person doesn't have an income problem; they have a spending problem.
Spending problem.
And that's not to be critical. That's to say, we understand that our teams come from many different places, but in a generalized sense, most of us come from the same place. Some of us we have something to prove, or maybe we don't come from affluence. Who knows? But there is sort of a type. I think that there's a type, and it does feel like it's our job as leaders of a management company to recognize that no matter what's going on there with the residents are going to resident all day long, right? Yeah, and the math is going to math or not all day long. We have to support these people in a way that is not just checking a box. It's not just sort of regulatory, or like we're going to put on Facebook that we have like volunteer day, and those things are great. I'm not mocking that, but I'm just saying like that is probably more of what he and I converse about on the regular, is like what programming do we really need to do to put in place so that way the people don't bring home to work. Like if home isn't great and they bring that to work, and then if work isn't great and they bring it home to their families, like we do feel like we're supporting 70 people plus the 4 or 5 in their immediate orbit or their household as well. And how do we get them feeling good? We need them all to feel good. Everybody feels kind of miserable out there. It's just in a general
would today's event be an example of kind of the holistic support that you mentioned, of like the property manager getting
a start of it? But like Joe's going to teach a course that's like intro to investing, and trying to help people understand that even just with like the smallest amounts. I mean, I should let you talk about it because you talk about it all the time. I'm not gonna. You'll get on. It'll be a tangent. It'll be a whole other episode. We can have an episode about it on the complex.
Snowball at the end.
Yeah.
So no, I do. I believe everything you said is right. And so when we're talking about the holistic,
that'll be on short.
Clip that.
YouTube short.
That's gonna be your new ringtone. Everything you said is right.
So every generation, we've always had to ask, like, how best do you receive feedback? Because as your leader, as their leader, you're going to get it. You have to. It's my job to give it to you. And so it's been probably pretty common. Just come to me face to face, man to man. I'm ready for whatever. That's not the thing anymore. Like we have to figure out how to give feedback that could possibly, in their mind, could crush them, while at the same time trying to take care of them holistically and make them feel needed and wanted and appreciated. But that one time, like you can do this for a person and that, and you're really doing a great job. But
right.
And that's a backbreaker to some people. They're just like, my world fell apart. And so we're trying to dance between those raindrops nowadays, where how do we bring you up? How do we also help you get to the next level without tearing you down? Mm-hmm. Not directly, but you were torn down. We just wanted to say, these are the things that could help you get to the next level. And then we might have reversed some of your progress. And so that's a puzzle that is still being worked on.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I think about your guys' situation is really like starting or building a property management company or side of the business from like zero. I mean, you both have a lot of experience from other firms and, long tenures there, but you can start at Gray Res with like the things that you like the most and leave the things that maybe didn't work so well. And I mean, we've grown pretty fast,
Yeah. It is really fast.
And
sometimes it feels really slow. And then when I actually look at like dates or when somebody's like, oh, how long have you been here? And
October's almost over.
Yeah.
We're halfway through.
And I told
it's going fast.
I told him, shortly after he started, I'm like, well, what we're trying to do really at a very accelerated speed, what we, maybe took 5 or 7 years, where we were before. And there's just not enough time really to do that. But no, foot's been on the pedal.
Yeah,
it has
for sure. And it's not, you can't just say, well, you've done it before. So, instead of 5 years, we should be able to do it in 2.5. We're going to do it in we're going to do it in that time, but mistakes happen, things get missed. You draw back and punt a lot more because haste makes waste, but we can't pull our foot off the gas because, we're ready to grow. We're ready to go.
Yeah. Cool.
So
I'm hearing a few things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the ultimate kind of goal of Gray Residential is the cultivation of communities that really prioritizes our tenants or our residents. But in order to cultivate those communities, you first have been tasked with the cultivation of a community with inside of Gray Residential, and then even more refined or distilled down, site level staff and managers, getting them to coexist, work together, have their own community. So kind of you begin to layer the number of communities that you guys need to stitch together in order to get this whole thing to work. It really is quite complex. So with that being said, we just acquired a brand new asset, 292 units that we just took over. It's been a week ago today.
Yep.
I wanted to just real quick dive into the asset takeover on the south side of Indy and just get a candid, authentic response to how you guys think it's been going and maybe what things or lessons from the past that have been applied to this takeover.
There were some variables on this one that were just very helpful to make it quite smooth.
There were.
Well, I mean, in some regards, software, the property management system that they used is the same one that we use. So that, it's called a migration versus a conversion. And there is a difference in some of the lift and the load.
Mapping over correctly.
And just the workload on whoever's doing the technical setup and, pulling all of that, together. Also, just it's fresh, right? Like it doesn't even have, we're not looking at deep history. It doesn't even have deep history.
Yeah.
There's a pile of dirt beside us, so no one's had time, and the operator was great, but no one's had time to mess it up, really. Like it's not been in anybody's care long enough to, have issues or hidden issues or, things that just like creep up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think in that regard, it's felt, smooth and it's felt easy. I also just think having been involved during underwriting, not to say that we weren't in others, but this one was a little bit different in that way. And we're just better today. I think Addison, who's in there with the numbers all the time, he doesn't have to ask Katrina or Joe, 80% of the questions because he's very knowledgeable at this point about some of these very standardized things. And he'll say, oh, this one's going to behave like X. Absolutely agree. So some of that, I think has been easier. So far, I think we just lucked out with the staff. Sometimes you just luck out. Okay.
Right. I was getting ready to ask.
Yeah.
Better to be lucky than good.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Better to be ready, no matter what. But I think their knowledge of systems and just being a really strong operator already. We're not coming in and trying to make any major waves as far as tightening up. There's some tightening up to do everywhere, right? That's but
it's the quickest way for that A property to go to a B plus is not minding the details. And so definitely things that we've walked past a handful of times. We're done with that. We're going to stop. We're going to get those things addressed so that this continues to be luxury for the years to come. A really just beautiful, nice place to call home for these residents.
In this vein, I know talking about closing flats at Stones Crossing, we don't have that much time during the raise to kind of spend a whole lot of time in the conference room talking about what we're going to do prior to close, or like really sharing notes and things. But one of the questions I had was, what are the things that were done or could have been done on the corporate side or on our side prior to close that set you guys up better for success on the management side? You mentioned being in the
realistic underwriting. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that what you're after?
Anything else? I mean, you mentioned being in the underwritings and.
Well, we're just more steady as it relates to like a framework to how we're going to operate, how we operate, what we've seen in other places, what these rates are, what the cost of this is, what that. So really, it's more just about identifying any nuance with the asset. And this one runs similar to what, maybe we've experienced in other Class A's, like where we worked before, so if there was anything just, outside of what is like normal, but again, this one is, there's not a whole lot to talk about there that is, this is different than most or different than what we're used to.
A building,
it blends right in.
A building gets hit by lightning and the fire panel has to be replaced. Well, that would happen on a new property or an old property. It's not something you're sitting back saying, well, did they design it the right way? And are we going to?
Right.
You just don't know.
Right.
There are things that anything could happen. But like Katrina said, this is too new for us to really have any kind of, radar going off saying, wait. This may not be a great idea. This is a great idea.
And so the way that translates, at least on our side, when you have less of those things that you're kind of putting up a yellow flag about, that results in risk. Like from the investor standpoint, sometimes they're just looking at 80s, 90s, higher IRR, higher cash on cash, higher return, like what kind of return I'm going to get. But, part of Griffin and I's job is especially on flats, was explaining that this is like not the same as a deal in Evansville, that we bought in the 80s. Like the risk spectrum is so different.
Sure.
But it's hard to, when you're just kind of on a call with us or looking at a deck to fully understand all of the things that the plumbing, the electrical, the whatever.
That's why we have to be diversified in what we buy. If all we bought were the 40-year-old, Evansville properties that are bringing in the high IRR, we're not able to touch as many things as we need to touch in order for it to operate the way that you want it to operate. So you may not get those returns if that's all you buy. Every now and then there needs to be something churning in the back. Flats at Stones Crossing ish.
Yeah.
That is that thing that allows us to make money here while we're putting our hands in over here, because we do have assets that take, I wouldn't say 80-20, but there are assets that we have to touch more than others.
Yeah.
And if we're not giving our attention to it and paying attention and addressing the things that pop up, then you're not going to get the returns that you wanted off that one either.
Well, we're talking about returns and investors for a second. Sorry to monopolize the questions, but one of the things that investors like so much about this property is it's so close to our office. And I was like,
really? Does it feel close? Do you think it's
compared to
close?
some
I
other
love
25 minutes.
Yeah, 25,
Is
30
it only
minutes.
25?
Yeah.
Straight through.
Have you ever driven with Blake?
No.
Real
It's
15.
25 minutes.
Yeah, no.
Really?
The car drives itself.
It's closer than Evansville. It's closer than Lansing.
Yeah. I also appreciate the proximity.
Right.
For a lot of different reasons, but also just Indianapolis, also a metro area that hasn't had just maximum growth like Hamilton County, right? Like we don't, and also I mean, just we used to manage 3 comps, or 3 relative comps because they're on the south side versus like the north side. You know what I mean? Like,
as I was thinking about advantages of this property versus others, I've never really thought about advantages of one management company to another. And I'm sure that there are. I have always heard economies of scale. It's really good to have 10,000 plus units under management because you can have really good economies of scale. And I was wondering, what advantages do we have as like a property management firm at our size that or disadvantages. Maybe it's all negative or
I don't think it's negative.
I don't think
it's
it's
positive.
negative.
mostly positive. What kind of positives?
Well, I think the fact that I walked in that room today and gave sort of a State of the Union, if you will, or like there's no
that would be harder to do across
Oh.
100, 200 people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then you end up with some, mixed messaging, or, maybe after the message is coming from the big table to this, to this, to this, to this. I mean, telephone game happens everywhere. It doesn't matter
Right.
how hard you try, especially when it's like a verbalized or vocalized sort of like goal setting or just discussion about like, look, this is where we're headed. This is what your budgets are going to look like. This is how they're being, created and, whatever. I don't know. I think that's what's cool about a small
One
company.
message.
Turn and pivot and message.
Yeah.
And,
Oh yeah. And say why. And
One
be honest
message
about
is
it.
heard 14 different ways.
right.
I said it one way, but it was heard 14 different ways. And so, to be able to have them all in one group, look them all in the eyes, you couldn't do that with 60, 75 property managers. And what if we had the maintenance supervisors in with them? There'd be so much commotion that things just get lost.
Right.
Messages get lost. They fall off. They don't have the impact. I definitely see it being a positive, being on the medium to smaller side versus 50, 60,000 units, because we are able to just pick up the phone,
Yeah.
just FaceTime, and building out, adding to Greenwood, Indianapolis. We're able to hop in a vehicle, go help when needed, and that's not always the case way up in Granger, Indiana, or down in Evansville.
Yeah.
It's hard to just say, hey, can you hop over and help? Tony's on vacation this week. Go over there, but we can. As we grow, we're tightening up those aspects.
Yeah. I would imagine implementing technology across 10,000, 20,000 units would also be just much more difficult.
For sure.
Cool. Sorry to take
Also, the threat of the drop-in is always good.
Right.
You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
Like the constant threat of the drop-in.
Yeah.
Although I've surprised people 3 hours away, so it's not impossible. It's just, the likelihood of it is less, plus the frequency of that would be less, no matter.
Right.
Yeah.
If I would have known you were coming, I would have. Oh, you do that
Sure.
every day.
Yeah, I know. I always say
Every
I'm the
day.
least important person that's coming today. Your prospect was more important.
Blake and I are going to add that into our investor calls. People always ask about the vertical integration of Gray Capital, Gray Residential. They're typically asking, what our buy boxes are in regards to asset characteristics. And when we get to the, 6-hour driving radius or Midwestern markets, relatively close to Indianapolis, there's always the farther desire to kind of better understand that. Maybe we add in, this is the quick unannounced drop-in of senior management to ensure, proficiencies and people are on site and the jobs are getting done.
We're also just trained to look at it differently. You know what I mean? Like his eyes on the site and mine on the site are completely different. And not to say that the regional managers and the rest of our team members don't, learn some of those things, but there's supposed to be a uniqueness in what we bring and what we see and what we might identify, while we're in their space. And sometimes it's little silly things that are meaningful, like at Flats. I'm sitting in the conference room doing interviews with the staff at about 30 days prior, is really right out of due diligence is when you are usually permitted to start talking to the employees. And we're sitting there and I'm looking over at this person just sweating it out in the fitness center, probably 12 to 14 feet away from me, and nothing between us but glass. And I'm like, we have to frost this glass. That's uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And then you have like a little yoga room that is just fantastic. But, I wouldn't want to go work out in that space and feel like I could really do what I wanted to do. Like there's a privacy, sort of moment. So in the interview, I'm just like, we're frosting that glass.
Yeah.
And the manager's like, I've never thought about that, but thank you.
Yeah,
like
small
what?
pause
That's
for big things.
great.
Right.
And how many people, and I'm not being offensive to the prior, maybe somebody didn't want to spend the money. Understood.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I'm not a genius, but I will come up with some things. Sometimes I'm like, that makes sense. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they need our eyes on it.
We're going to revert back to the theme of change.
Ugh.
I'm just curious, there's the old adage of, the more that changes, the more that stays the same. In every industry, there's always, the antiquated dinosaur artifact, whatever it might be. Today I've heard the use of radios. I've heard the group skate, and then carbon copy.
The all skate.
The all skate.
Bring the
So you
radios
guys-
I've heard
back.
fax machine too.
Fax machine. So you
I
guys,
did say
if there's anybody that can speak to elements of property management that have remained unchanged, what might those be?
Mhm.
How are you guys continuing to use it? And is there any possibility of that changing or staying the same? Let me also say this.
Yeah.
You can mention that the common goal of property management, that is always, I think, in my opinion, stayed the same.
Yes.
So the goal orientation of the fostering of communities and the stewardship of individuals' homes, that can stay the same.
Yeah.
But what, outside of the root cause, what is unchanged? Or resistant to change? Maybe not changing as fast.
Well, I actually think, if I can, so creating the community, it used to be really easy because of what Joe mentioned earlier, where you weren't so disconnected by a device, right? So people came to resident events. We had some absolute bangers at Greenfield Crossing. Like, you got kegs, you had a DJ.
We had some at Smallwood. too.
As you should.
Yeah.
Well, that was student. You all do crazy stuff. Anyway.
We
yeah,
did.
yeah. But I think that there's been, like a valley as it relates to that connectivity, and it has to come back up. Like that has to get back to the good old days. Psychologically, people, like I said, just societally, like, people need it so much. They need it somewhere in their lives. Some of them are 100% remote.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are hybrid. Some of them are worried about if their job will even exist soon. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much of that. What we did at River Club, and I think it'll really manifest in the spring, by building an outdoor park with the very, very specific, like, it wasn't just like, oh, we've got some land, make it pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It was curated to be where people just had to get out of their house
Mhm.
and smile at someone, or be face to face, or start to connect. Like, I do think that there has been a valley since I started where it's just kind of tanked, and it's just like social event budgets get kicked out, or they're like, do it on a budget, make a vendor sponsor it, which those are good things. Thanks, vendors. But it was just very, like, robotic, and it was like, oh yeah, we did this, and it has to ramp back up and be very purposeful, and maybe even be something we didn't think it should. Like, I think that we should be at one of our communities that has an older demographic. Like, we should be bringing in some of those people and having, like, show and tell or story time. Where they get to, like, I want Doris to come in and tell me about her life, man. She's awesome. Love her. And she's one of the first residents I met at River Club, and I look for her every time I'm down there. She's using a walker right now, but she used to walk with a fanny pack shoes on it. She can tell you every sidewalk crack that exists, but
Resident
Thanks,
historian.
Doris.
yeah, but I don't think that has stayed the same. I think it needs to get back to where it started, and I think that'll be a really important piece on the retention side. Like, we just can't make ourselves disposable. So many like products out there, these new products. You wouldn't remember if you toured gray cabinets and a white backsplash, or white cabinets and a gray backsplash, or quartz or granite, or this quartz or whatever. Like, it is blended to, if you're looking at very similar products. So the only difference is the personality in the community.
How you
And the
feel.
only difference is the personality in the salesperson at that point, because it's 4 walls, windows, and a door.
Right.
So I think that that's something that didn't stay the same, but it needs to go back to the fundamentals.
That's good.
I agree. I know that all too often it's like 5 o'clock, gotta go. But there was a back in the day when it's like, okay, 5 o'clock, Joe, you and the crew go grab all those tables and let's get them set up. And we knew, we're here until cleanup. And we've already worked that out with our family, and we're going to be with the residents tonight. And, we just, how to get
And it was
back.
fun.
It was.
Chili cook-off.
How to get back to that
things.
is the question.
We used to
but
have a senior
definitely-
breakfast
Yeah.
once a month.
How to
Those
get
people
back
love
to
it.
that does seem like a difficult
Right.
question, because that seems more of a cultural
It is.
thing that is
Yeah.
slow moving, hard
Yeah.
to change.
the site team has to have the energy, and they have to be
Yeah.
given some budget. They have to have some budget.
Let's pull the string on the River Club topic.
Oh.
Let's get farther into that because
Okay.
we upon asset takeover of River Club, and it
Yeah.
might have been shortly after,
Yeah.
unearthed a couple shoe boxes of what were some really awesome
Oh my God, I love them.
photos of resident events, things happening on property, and
Yeah.
I'm going to say they were from the early '80s. Could be wrong, but
No, they were definitely from the early 80s.
early '80s.
Some of them had a timestamp, like 84.
You could just see, and who knows when those photos were taken. If it was all one night, same week, across the months or years.
Mhm.
But what you guys are talking about in regards to resident engagement, community focused engagement,
Mhm.
is very visible in those photos.
Yeah.
I lived in an apartment. It's been a little while since I've lived in an apartment, but the resident events these days are more or less as you're walking in and out of the leasing office, grabbing your mail. Hey, why don't you just make a postcard, or why don't you paint this pumpkin?
Mhm.
And they're very short-lived. You can kind of walk by and achieve that goal versus some of these longer stay. Let's hang out with the residents all night.
Well,
We are-
the first is a check a box, like what you just said.
Right.
And we learned how to do it during COVID because you were trying to figure something out. So you
Mhm.
delivered a pumpkin and a pumpkin carving kit to the door, or you put out a video for a holiday craft where you melted some peppermints into some shape or something.
Right, it's come dip a candle.
Obviously, these are real stories. So, but
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I think would make the biggest difference, like we are going to bring the club back to River Club. Just wait, it's going to happen.
We did
It is going to
frame.
happen.
Second
I think-
story.
30 of
Oh,
those
Yeah.
photos
Oh,
were
really?
blown up into black. They're beautiful. It's my favorite thing.
And-
And I put my favorite guy right in the middle.
and technology with the laser level, it's 3 rows of 10 perfectly spaced all the way through. So again,
You can
Yeah.
tell. You can.
John,
Can you tell?
you
him?
on that all
Look
the
how
time?
excited he is.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe
And
And then you put him up there, and I was like, no, this guy with the boom
she's
box,
moving, but
smoking a cigarette has to
Yeah.
be right. In the middle. But
still made it happen. It's may not seem that great, but if you're standing
no,
there,
it
you're
is.
like, that's
It's like a
piece,
memorial.
It's a piece of this property's history,
Yeah.
and that's
That's
good
cool.
stuff.
That is good.
But I think humans are, well, first very anxious. I think the failure comes
Getting
in
more
like
so.
communicating exactly what to expect, maybe having some themes, people know what to wear, who else is going to be there, where I'm going to sit. Like there's a lot of details they don't feel important that are very important to
Mhm.
most people today. Most people today need details, need understanding, need to know what to expect before they're going to get up and go. Otherwise, it's these sort of just, required, somewhat like statutory, like I have to have this event, I had to do it this month, I have to put it in a report that I
Right.
did something. And then they're like, we did breakfast on the go, but it was in the clubhouse and everybody had to come pick it up. So only 20 people came.
Mhm.
And every property management person out there will be like, well, we kind of stopped doing them because nobody came. And it's like, then you didn't do it right.
didn't do it
And you didn't
right.
work hard enough.
We were at the front and back exits, card table on both sides, orange
Yeah.
juice, prepackaged, breakfast, muffins, donuts, whatever it may
Sunny
be.
D.
Sunny D for sure. And
That's right when no one came. No, I'm just kidding.
This is a long time
No,
ago,
that's good.
Blake.
Yeah.
20 years ago, Sunny D was the hit.
Yeah.
But no, you had to make yourself present. Don't expect them to come in, like get in their face, say, "Hey, I want you to have a great day today."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
Bring
really
that-
like to
bring
see
that
you.
back.
It has to be like, they have to be out on site.
Right.
And they have to say, I really hope I see you on Friday. Or
Right.
And then maybe they will.
I'm going to give Joe a chance to, maybe even you a little bit too, Katrina, a chance to maybe brag just a bit. We've spent some significant CapEx dollars down at River Club in Evansville to set up the infrastructure and the framework to provide that community a chance to get together as a community in exterior community space, paved patio, fire pits, lounge furniture. We demolished the what would have been secondary clubhouse that was
Clubhouse B.
no longer
Clubhouse
getting
B.
Yeah,
utilized.
for no point.
Had an was it that was the one with the interior pool that was
Had an in-ground pool with a leak.
Didn't
So
yeah.
demolished that.
Yeah.
We're hardscaping it. Basketball court, pickleball court, farther kind of
Hammocks.
lounge seating area,
Hammocks.
hammocks.
Like
Yeah.
a gazebo.
ceramic fire pits, like
These
these
cool,
are
like
these
tall,
are really
vintage
nice.
looking. I'm so
Absolutely.
excited.
Right.
I just can't.
So jump into that project for us on a property management facilities lens, but also dive back into the community creation at River Club. And I want you to talk specifically about maybe some of the headwinds that we're seeing at River Club in regards to leasing traffic and or occupancy, and the forward-looking projections of what this new space will do on resident tours, and then hopefully lease generation and lease execution.
Well, the unit mix, because there are so many one bedrooms, says that like we have to do something to keep people engaged in it. I'm not saying like that it couldn't be obviously a single person and a child, but it is most often, statistically speaking, and what is actually there is most often singles or double income, no kids. And so you have to build things that make sense, get people out. So, I mean, it is thoughtfully done, based on the demographic, because it is, 260 or 280 of them are one bedroom. So it's like, you have to ask yourself, like, who's coming to town? Well, new person in Evansville that just got a job at the hospital, maybe. And yes, they're going to make friends, hopefully, or find a way to, nurture and spend their weekends. But like, we need to be part of that. Even if it's just the illusion of it, like, even if it's just like, oh yeah, I would come to the pool and hang out. Or yes, I will go over there and lay in the hammocks or something like that. I mean, we probably have to do more than that. We need like some book clubs, or like we need a Love is Blind viewing party in the big community room upstairs.
Blake's going to drive through.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to come.
Are you in? Why are you watching it?
No, my wife is.
Oh, yeah. Of course she is.
So
am I.
But the physical exterior part of it, it's kind of, it's, at least 3 seasons. We've got beautiful landscaping, so, able to enjoy it in early spring. Basketball and pickleball, plus the pool and the deck at the clubhouse with other grills and gazebos and sitting areas and cornhole, like all the way to the fire pits and pergolas and the lounging ability into the fall. Like we want almost all year long for you to come out of those apartments, meet your neighbors, meet new friends, network.
Yeah, I mean, like the patios really aren't that large.
They're not large at all. Probably 10 by.
Didn't build it that way back then. I have a theory that River Club, when it was built, was like adults only.
Strong possibility.
I have a theory. And probably turned into some just like major like singles club.
Yeah,
I would guess. I have to guess. I mean, I've seen all the pictures. The box of pictures you're talking about. I'm like, I've got some suspicions about some activity. But like, I think that the framework, the hardscape is the framework, and then now we have to start filling it. We want to do live music in the courtyard, like maybe a movie night with the blow up. They have to start coming up and trusting the consistency and what they're going to see, and that they might see the same people sometimes. In a good way. But the community room, the game room's awesome. I mean, it's not just the outdoors, it's the indoors too. The game room, the event room. I think we'll consider a chair lift to get to it. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like back then they didn't have to be built in a certain way, so it doesn't have to technically, but I think there's some options there. And the community room, I know, brings people in. Like you'll talk to somebody down there and they'll be like, oh yeah, I came to my cousin got married in the upstairs room. And you're like, what? Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, everybody has like, I bet it's like, what is it? The 7 steps to Kevin Bacon or something. It's like in Evansville,
Sure.
There's definitely 7 steps or less connection to River Club. I have no doubt.
Just seems like the cultivation of community in the multifamily space and property management, seems like maybe you're saying it's become a little bit more transactional. Let me sign the lease. Let me live kind of in my unit. Let me watch my movies, watch my shows.
Yeah.
We all kind of get engulfed into our tablets, our iPhones, our podcasts, whatever it might be. But at a place, I talked about this with Spencer 2 weeks ago on the podcast, was the affordability of an apartment unit based on all of the things that you have access to at your fingertips, whether it's at River Club or it's at Flats and Stones Crossing. For your monthly payment, you have the fitness area at River Club is amazing. It might be one of the best in our portfolio.
It's up there. It's very nice.
Pretty dang good.
Yeah.
You have all of the lounge seating. You're getting the basketball, the pickleball, all these things that you have, allowing residents to come in, sign a lease, but then how do you incentivize them to actually utilize some of these amenities? And I'm thinking, you mentioned book club, wine club, whatever it might be. Is there a way to deputize your tenants or a tenant to kind of lead the social chair, become the social chairman or social chairwoman of
For sure.
River Club to now where they
you just hire them.
Yeah.
Like you say, hey, I mean, we ended up hiring two current residents
Okay.
when we had positions open up. And one of them, I think, is like a mini mayor. Like she's lived there for 5 years. She knows everybody,
Right.
everything. I mean, that is one way to do it. But to be honest with you, there should be a committee.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we should have a committee. Also at River Club, like I want to be on the committee because I can already tell you the personalities that are joining, and it'll be a great meeting.
Right.
The event, who knows? But I mean, we even did we have a pop-up shop space down there. So we found like a somewhat empty space in a lobby, if you will, or vestibule. And I'm just like, this can't just sit empty. So we've laid out display shelves, a clothing rack, and a table. Anybody can come in there and sell their goods. So that'll be used more, in the winter. And that particular person that we hired, like she's in charge of that. But no, we should be great idea. Great idea, Griffin. Like we should be looking at it like a co-op, and there should be like a board, like an HOA board, but not crazy.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Not telling you that your grass needs mowed.
Yeah.
They'll be telling us the grass needs mowed. But we should look at something like that, like a social events committee, because there are certainly people with some time on their hands that would enjoy a responsibility and would probably do a great job.
We take the burden off of our leasing and
just
property
tell us what you
management
want,
staff.
Doris.
The cultivation of community, at River Club, we're taking the right steps in the right direction by providing the framework. Really excited to look forward into what I think is going to be a really awesome spring leasing season down there as those amenities become invigorated with the springtime. We'll see what can happen down there. But I look forward to following along. And if there's an opportunity to serve on that board, as social chairman,
let's go.
I would be interested. Awesome. Let's transition into the next segment. It'll be the last segment of the podcast today. It's going to be a rapid fire question for both Katrina and Joe. We're just going to go back and forth between Blake and I. Whatever questions you want to start with, let's get them rapid fire and then we'll exit.
All right. You want me to start or you want to start?
You start it up.
All right. What's the most fun aspect of each of your roles today?
Of my role today?
Yeah. What's the most fun?
Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh.
I'm never stumped. I think for me personally, and I take great pride in this, is that I feel, a sense of connection with every department, every human. Like sometimes I say I'm the center of a dartboard and it may not come out with a positive tone, but truly it does. So like when, Griffin can ask me a question, and I try to have an answer. I try really hard to have an answer, and I like that I get to connect with everyone and have my hands in most things. Actually, I enjoy that.
Cool. Joe?
I'm an HVAC nerd. Most of the other stuff that I do is just part of the job, and it has to be done. But the big passion is to be out there in the field, working with the teams, training them, taking them to that next level. I know how it changed my life. My knowledge and my finances and my ability to feed my family a little better with that skill than prior to having it. So when I see my team members elevate and graduate to a point where they can start to troubleshoot, repair, replace, and handle that aspect of what we have going on in property management, that is the thrill.
Awesome. Cool.
I'd like to know what each of your most prized or your most proud of accomplishment in your professional life that you've achieved thus far.
I'm a real estate investor. I never thought that was going to be possible.
Yeah.
And so long strides to get here, but I see it through two lenses. I see it through the employer and the employee. I understand what is expected of me and why, because I'm at the other end of some of those deals. And if I'm not performing, it doesn't come back to me that way. And so it's more important now to have that than it might have seemed prior to being that investor.
I don't really feel very accomplished sometimes, but I think I know that I want to speak at NAA. So if I reach that goal, then maybe I'll think that that's an accomplishment. But taught CALP at the Apartment Association, I think now for 8 or 9 years. And, it's going to sound selfish, but like that's an incredibly rewarding, like 3 days. I'm face to face oftentimes with people. I mean, I don't know how many people have been through my class, but roughly 40 a year for all those years. And sometimes I would teach, in like Merrillville or whatever, but like I'll go to, the convention or the conference, or I'll see people on LinkedIn that are just incredibly successful, and I'll remember them in the CALP, class. So I like to think that I had an impact on a great deal of people in the industry. So I think that's maybe my most proud accomplishment.
I think that's in your near future in AA.
Cool.
Submissions are due in 2 weeks. So better get on it. Better get on it.
What do you wish a boss, mentor, or peer told you when you were starting out? When I would have helped your career, or something that you would have liked to have insight into, or
I had fantastic leaders, but I think that I wish someone told me earlier to start reading books. Like, I don't think I started really like diving in and reading until I was like 38. I'm 45 right now. I don't necessarily think I'd be in a different place necessarily, but someone encouraged me to start reading books, and I think it's changed a lot about who I am and what I bring to the table.
Awesome.
Similar to that, to just
learn,
start making, better decisions earlier in life. Sometimes you look at, it's almost like, I don't know, imposter syndrome. You see someone else and you're saying, well, I could never be on their level. I don't know what they know. I've not been where they've been. If someone would have said to me, they don't do anything different than you other than hustle harder, then I would have hustled harder and I'd have been here sooner. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Cool.
What did you want to be when you were growing up, Joe, when you were riding around on that lawnmower? What was it?
I don't know if there was ever really that. I don't think my life was different, so I think my ambition was different. But I've said to myself many times since, if I had it to do all over again, I probably would have went into the Marines, and I would have traveled around the world that way.
Mm-hmm.
But since that didn't happen, I'll settle for vice president of Gray Residential. How's that?
Although we did convince an intern once.
He definitely
that
thought
you were
I
a Navy
was
SEAL.
Navy SEAL. Had a backpack that looked pretty intense.
Yeah,
and
very tactical.
Very tactical. And she's like, well, we got to wait for the Navy SEAL. I was like, was he really a Navy SEAL?
And I was like, no, but we thought so.
What a fall from grace.
Yeah. I wanted to be an attorney, which I don't think
You're
is
still kind of
surprising. I do. I know. I mention it all the time. I'm going to start
Yeah.
studying for the LSATs.
It's not too late,
and that's my winter goal, is to be ready to take the LSATs maybe like in the spring.
It's probably too late to be a Navy SEAL, Joe,
It's
but it's not too
Oh.
late.
It's definitely.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've jokingly dropped, like one time we were talking about personal development, and Spencer is very just, open and supportive, and is like, just let us know, like, especially with me and my team, like if there's a conference, a course or whatever. And I was like, is law school off the table? An attorney.
I have another one. So oftentimes I feel like from our side, we sit in the LP's seat a lot, like when we're asking you a question. It's really a question that has come from an investor.
Sure.
And they don't see your guys' side really at all. And the bridge is really the reports that we send out. And on the quarterly report, Spencer does a video overview about the report, telling the investor 10 or 15 minutes of things that are that are happening at the property. And I wanted to say, what is either a little known fact or something in the multifamily space on your side that you would want an investor to know or understand?
I mean, no matter,
they only see numbers and charts.
I would say that there are things between the numbers. There are things between the lines. Obviously, all the activity out there is what creates the activity that then is being reported.
Yeah.
But there are sometimes just pieces that even we can't see. I just talked about it this morning. I'm like, you can do a study, like we can do a time study, for example, on how much almost like billable hours with an attorney. Like we can look at our site teams and we can do like a study to determine how many of their hours are attributable to specific tasks by assigning like, time or whatever. And it's like, there's, a percentage that you might come up with. And then there's this absolute known percentage that we can't come up with, but that is productive, that is revenue producing or revenue protecting, but articulating it in a number is incredibly difficult.
Right.
So I think it's just, for me, that's what it is. Like the numbers are
Progress
there.
is happening. They're just not yet reflected.
It's like in figure skating, there's like a technical score and then there was an artistic score. I don't know if they still do it that way, but
Griffin, do they still do it that way?
Last time
Figure skating. Look, y'all. My sister and I used to watch it a lot when we were kids. So, but I think it's like that. I think that those reports are the technical score, and then there's an artistic score that we're working with all the time. We could
incorporate that into a report or something like a data score and artistic.
It's like how did the triple sow cow?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
We're always working towards the best technical score. It's I mean,
yes.
if you could say one thing, it's like these numbers didn't miss because we were just lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in property management, good or bad, sits on the backs of the humans.
Yeah.
And not every human is that, 100 mile an hour go-getter. Some of them, there's an engine and there's a caboose on every train. You get too many cabooses, train's not gonna move there fast.
This is the caboose of this podcast.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Great question. We should cut it there. We'll be done. Blake, way to end this on a high note with the caboose mention. Joe, Katrina, Blake, I appreciate you guys joining me today on the podcast. And if you're listening, thank you for putting up with myself as the host in absence of Spencer Gray. Whether you're a commercial real estate professional, a broker, or a prospective investor or a current Gray Capital investor, we appreciate you paying attention, following along on this edition of the Gray Report podcast. And if you're interested, head over to graycapitalllc.com/newsletter and sign up to receive our weekly newsletter. Thanks again for watching. Joe, Katrina, Blake, thanks for being here.
Thank you.